For decades, the United States has stood as a symbol of refuge and hope for people fleeing persecution, but as the 2024 election nears, the very idea of asylum in America hangs in the balance. Both Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump, despite their different ideologies, propose major reforms that could redefine America's role as a sanctuary for refugees. This shift could signal the end of the U.S. asylum system as we know it, altering the landscape of humanitarian aid for years to come. Before delving into the details, let's take a look at the immigration policy perspectives of both leading presidential candidates.
Have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in, they're eating the cats, they're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame. We are going to start the largest mass deportation in the history of our country because we have no choice. It's not sustainable. And we are going to start with violent criminals, and we're going to start then with criminals. The largest deportation in the history of our country, history of the United States, American history. And they have to stop. They cannot let illegal immigrants vote in this upcoming election.
I will surge support to law enforcement agencies on the front lines, more personnel, more training, and more technology, and instead crosses our border unlawfully, they will be barred from receiving asylum. I reject the false choice that suggests we must either choose between securing our border or creating a system of immigration that is safe, orderly, and humane.
The U.S. asylum system, once the cornerstone of American ideals, now faces growing scrutiny. Critics from both sides agree that it is overwhelmed and outdated, unable to handle the rising influx of asylum seekers. In 2023 alone, more than 169,000 people applied for asylum at the southern border, overwhelming shelters and stranding migrants in camps or temporary, often unsafe conditions. Meanwhile, Western democracies are closing their doors as public opinion around immigration hardens. Against this backdrop, America's once proud tradition of refuge stands on uncertain ground. If elected, Trump intends to double down on his previous administration's hard-line policies, which raised barriers for asylum seekers and restricted eligibility. During his presidency, he intensified vetting processes, limited court access, and used the COVID-19 pandemic as a pretext to deny most asylum applications outright. Trump's policies reflect a determination to dramatically curb both legal and illegal immigration, potentially cutting off lifelines for many who seek safety in the U.S. Kamala Harris, though aligned with a more moderate approach, is also promising restrictive measures, reflecting a notable shift within the Democratic Party itself. Under President Biden, new executive actions have already been put in place, limiting when and where asylum seekers can apply along the southern border. Analysts say this shift would have been unthinkable for Democrats even a decade ago, but today aligns with a widespread sentiment. Many Americans, including a growing number of Democrats, support limiting migration. This consensus, some experts warn, may signal a lasting pivot in American immigration policy. The American asylum system, as we know it, has its roots in World War II, born from the moral failure of many Western nations to offer refuge to Jewish people fleeing the Holocaust. Later, the Cold War era expanded this system, emphasizing asylum for those escaping communism. The Refugee Act of 1980 established a legal framework for asylum, limited to those fleeing persecution on account of race, religion, nationality, political belief, or membership in a social group. But the system evolved as new migration pressures, including violence in Central America, pushed the boundaries of who qualified for asylum. The system's strain isn't recent, it has faced pressures for decades. During the Obama administration, the rise of unaccompanied minors from Central America escaping violence strained resources further. Under Trump, asylum access was severely restricted, a trend that has continued under Biden due to record migration numbers. This bottleneck has fostered a public perception of dysfunction and chaos, deepening partisan divides on how to address asylum. Now, Faced with unprecedented levels of migration, both parties are focusing on restrictions. Stephanie Lutert, a former State Department official, notes that asylum has become politically toxic. This political climate, paired with public skepticism around immigration, makes it unlikely that access to asylum will expand anytime soon. Human rights advocates fear that a second Trump presidency could shut down asylum altogether, while Harris, if elected, might pursue more humanitarian policies within a restricted framework. Current policies under Biden have introduced limited, technology-driven pathways to apply for asylum. An app, CBP-1, offers a small number of daily appointments, and those without a U.S.-based sponsor cannot even apply. Critics argue this system is exclusionary and risks deporting legitimate asylum seekers simply because they lack digital access. Cecilia Moose, a former White House official, acknowledges that while humanitarian principles remain crucial, the mechanics of America's asylum system are outdated and vulnerable to abuse by human smugglers. Moose advocates for an overhaul that preserves the values behind asylum while adapting the system to modern challenges. As the U.S. grapples with record numbers of migrants, resource constraints, and polarized political discourse, the future of asylum is on the edge. Harris and Trump offer varying degrees of restriction, but both signal a path where asylum, once central to America's identity, may become harder to access. This shift raises alarm among advocates who fear America's legacy as a haven for the oppressed could fade, leaving future generations without the sanctuary the nation once promised. In this moment, as public opinion shifts and policies follow suit, America's role as a beacon of hope stands at a crossroads. Will it remain a sanctuary for the persecuted, or will it turn inward, leaving countless lives in the balance? As the U.S. stands at a pivotal moment in its asylum policies, what do you think? Should America continue to be a haven for those fleeing persecution, or should it adopt a more restrictive approach? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more in-depth analysis and the latest news shaping our world.